past few days. There's a lot of confusion amongst a lot of youth-oriented believers within our church, especially when it comes to what is going on back home. Why is it such a big deal? What makes it different from other times? Our church has been under attack from recent times, as recent as a few months ago until a year ago, and all these circumstances that have happened within the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So what sets it apart? Why is everybody in such panic mode, and you see the whole country reacting in the way that they are reacting? So I want to start by asking our brother Diakon Daith Muluna, recently wedded man. What is going on back home? What is the circumstance? Can you give us a brief summary of this?
Thank you for this opportunity. I think that just to give everybody kind of a background of how we got to this live once again, you and I have been communicating, really trying to understand what is our role as deacons within the church, and what can we do. And one of the things that we both identified is there seems to be a bit of a gap between people who grew up here in America and their understanding of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and what is happening right now. And we need to educate people what the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is. So when we say we're Ethiopian Orthodox Church, there's something that comes with it. The church is one, the church is holy, the church is apostolic, the church is universal. These are not ideologies or opinions. This is a dogmatic creed that we recite. We believe these things to be true, and they are under threat. Therefore, we must stand together regardless of our personal feelings with one another, whatever type of political party we might back or anything like that. We must be strong and firm in where we stand about the church. When the church is under attack, it is under attack. So for this reason, we are here to say, well, let's educate people. Let's really, tell them what we need to do. And this is one of many ways that we're going to, through the grace of God, be willing to, address people's concerns. And I see some questions here, and I can't really read it right now. I want to say, everybody who's here, I know you guys have some questions, some pressing questions. We'll answer it. We may not all get along. We'll answer it. And just remember, whatever comments you're leaving behind, we are talking about people dying. We are talking about innocent children being shot with a rifle while defending their church. So whatever personal ideologies you might have about me, about Dagon Gorgorios, as we talk today and we have discussions, keep in mind that at the end of this conversation, behind all this, what is driving all this stuff, is the killing of innocent people. So with that in mind, I just ask everyone to ask, let's have a discourse, let's have a discussion. Okay, you guys may not agree, but let's just keep that in mind while we were talking. So what happened? What happened is, for the past several, I'll say about, and I'm just going to stick with the most recent things and what happened with that, because there's, it's multi-layered. And actually, one thing I want to preface by saying is, let's not simplify a very complex system and a complex history. And sometimes, people want to simplify things, and maybe I'll get into it in a second later on, but it's a very complicated history that we have. But the more recently, there were questions about the lack of service in Oromic language. And a group of people said, look, we're not getting the type of service we want, and if we don't get what we want, we will start our own administration. We were not going to incorporate our own synodos, but we'll start our own administration. That was the initial question that was brought up. And for those of you who might be new to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church is run under the Holy Spirit, who guides the Holy Synodos, which is a collection of bishops. So there's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit guides the bishops, and the bishops collectively make the Holy Synodos, and the one who calls the bishops, all the bishops answer to, of course, the patriarch, and then collectively as bishops, they answer to the Holy Spirit, and then of course the bishops under them have priests and so on and so forth. And initially, the goal was not to institute a Holy Synodos. We could go back and have these discussions as much as we want. After that, people have so they started this work. They started doing many things, and then the church said, "Hey, why don't we work together? Because we actually want more people to learn in their own language, whether that's Oromic, Tigrinya, Amarinya, whatever it is." So the people repented, asked for forgiveness, and were reunited with the church. And many people were actually upset about this, and I'm gonna talk about this later on. They were upset. Why would we forgive them after they attempted to fracture and divide the church? But the church said, "Look, we are Christians. We are about forgiveness. So if people are saying they're sorry, in fact, we're gonna promote them, and we're gonna give them better positions, and we're gonna make sure that they have a place where they can be influential in the Oromo region." And after that, sure enough, shortly afterwards, three bishops decided to ordain 26 bishops on their own without the knowledge of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and that kind of started the recent division. I just want to quickly note, I'm seeing a lot of comments that's saying turn off the comments. Keep them on. And those of you I ask who are really following along, disregard the comments and just listen to what I say. I'm very much cognizant that there are people that are trying to troll here. Don't let that discourage you. Let people have a dialogue. Let's have a dialogue. And people who are here to listen. And there will be a time where we're going to start answering the questions, and we'll answer them. But other than that, let's have a dialogue, and we'll see how it goes. I ask you guys who are here really to talk, to stop the comments for now. And then those who are commenting, we'll know are the trolls who are not really here to listen, but just there will be a time for questions. But those of you who are really here to engage, I ask you to stop the comments. And those who are not going to, you'll know them by the fruits. So eventually, once the three bishops came together, they ordained 26 bishops without the knowledge of the patriarch. The church gave time for the three bishops to turn around and ask for forgiveness so that the church could be united. Unfortunately, they did not want to listen to the voice of the Holy Synodos and the patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Therefore, this division happened. Now, you might be asking, what is the big deal? I've talked about this before. Other than the dogmatic issues, other than canonical issues, there's real on the ground problems. So if you think of the bishops being kind of like the governor of a state. So I live in Virginia, we have a governor. If a new person comes in and says, look, from now on, I'm the governor of Virginia, then just think about what happens if this new group of people come in and they try to take over state government buildings. One of two things is gonna what's gonna happen is when they try to take over the building, the other group is gonna say, wait, this is our building. And then obviously there's gonna be a struggle between these two groups. Now, in a place where a government exists, the government will protect the people, make sure everything is calm. Unfortunately, what we are seeing is in cities like Shashamane, they have gunned down innocent people while they were trying to protect their church. The government did this, and the government is the answer. And actual real life problems we're not here talking about philosophy and theories. We're not here talking about, Marxism, Leninism, and all this stuff. We're here talking about people dying on the streets. And again, there's going to be time to have a dialogue with people who are here, but always keep that in mind. These are real life problems. This is not theories we're talking about. These are practical problems. people are dying on the streets, and we're here to raise awareness of it. So in summary, the church is split into two, behind the backing of the government, and frankly, the Protestant church. We know just a few months ago, there was Pastor Jonathan, who has a history, and we could get into it, of pure hatred against the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And recently, we have uncovered bank statements of the Protestant church giving money to the currently appointed bishops. We know this. They're bank statements.
Was it like 225,000?
Yeah, a ridiculous amount. We know this to be true, and we have not uncovered the Protestant bank. So they have their own bank. They're not willing to kind of divulge that information. But we know from bank statements that part of the group of people, at least one, who is appointed into bishophood, has been paid by the Protestant church. One of the other members, who was recently ordained, was fired from his previous position and is angry at the administration. These are factual things that have occurred. So to simply limit it to a language barrier, I mean, we know that there's a backing of a political regime who has, and I quote, said, "We are worse than Yahpa's region, the Red Terror." And if you guys are not aware of the Red Terror, though, that's our parents' region, when literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people died in about a month or two. Look it up, Red Terror in Ethiopia. And he said, "We are worse than that, and we will make sure more people die than the Red Terror." So right now we're saying, what's the point of a government if it's not here to protect its citizens? So we're raising awareness. We're talking about it. Sorry for the long rant.
No, this is very, very important, because I think everybody needs to understand the whole context of the situation. It's interesting that you brought up the government as well. I think it was the moment Abu Matthias and the Holy Synod reached out to the government body. They were met with a response that said, as a government, we are not allowed to intervene with inside issues of the church. And he said it was something that we needed to deal with on ourselves. And then he warns his cabinet members not to intervene with any of the situation of the church. And then this was live broadcasted on television, and we saw that issue. And then when our church spoke out and said, okay, if the government's not going to intervene, we're going to do something about it, then we saw the government siding with one side, and then doing all these things that they are doing right now. So it is very unfortunate, and it's very important that we knew that, and then everybody that has been following along understands as well. So yes, this is the circumstance, this is the situation that we are in right now. This is why we think this is very, very urgent. The church no longer has any type of protection, where the church is not armed to defend itself. Different forces, like the government forces maybe, different other rebellious groups that they have in their support. They have the Protestant churches, funding and supporting all these things. We know that we are in a grave danger, right? This is why we are saying this is very, very important. And like every comment that I've been reading for the past few lines, there's a lot of concerns and questions as well. We're also going to address that. So I'm going to go into the next question that I have for our brother Diakon David, and that is that the cover or the veil that they used in doing such thing was that the language situation. So you kind of touched up on it, but is it true that the Orthodox Church hasn't done enough in the Oromic region? Is it that are they seen as inferior to the Orthodox Church? Because a lot of people have projected that in recent times, and they have said that we've been looked down upon for the past this many years. We feel inferior, we don't have enough service and all these things. But is that really true? Has the Orthodox Church ignored that region, which holds 52% of the population?
So in order to understand this, let's understand the history of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and in essence the history of Ethiopia as well. So as we've talked about before, as most of you may know, the Ge'ez language was a primary language during what we know as the Axumite Empire, which is estimated to be starting around the 2nd century AD to all the way about the 7th or 8th century AD. There's some debate about when it exactly stopped. So that is the lingua franca, or the common language of the time, was Ge'ez. People did not speak Amarinya. They didn't speak Tigrinya. They didn't speak Orominya. They spoke Ge'ez. Ge'ez was a language that people spoke of the common world. Axum is in the northern region. Then when Islam started to grow, they started controlling the seas and the trade system around there. So then if you think about Ethiopia, geographically speaking, it's near the water region. So when trade stops, there's a drought. So after drought, people started going south to discover, hey, what's going on there? So when they went down, they got to a region named Lasta, and there was a group of people known as Ago. Ago is a Cushitic people, and they don't speak the Semite language of Ge'ez. When these two group of people, the Ge'ez speaking community and the Ago speaking community, merged, a phenomenon known as pigeonization happened. That is, two communities with different speaking ideologies and languages come together. They birth new languages. And languages like Amarinya developed. Languages like Tigrinya developed. And if you look at them, I always talk about this, if you think of Ge'ez as a mother and Ago as a father, it makes Amarinya and Tigrinya brothers and sisters, siblings. That is what we call the family tree. So, interestingly, the Zagwe dynasty, Ago of Ago, who spoke the Cushitic language of Ago, adopted Ge'ez as the language of the church. They didn't, hold on and translate things into Ago. They adopted Ge'ez. This is not the work of the Amharas. It's not the work of the Tigres or the Oromos. It is the Ago community accepting that Ge'ez is the language for the church. Although it wasn't the lingua franca, meaning the language of the people at the time, they adopted Ge'ez as the language of the church. Throughout history, throughout the world, you will find examples of churches saying, hey, this is a unique language. Let's use it for liturgical purposes. Obviously, the Catholic Church being one of them, using Latin in their services. So this is what the language did. Now, in this present day, no one speaks Ge'ez as a first language. Of course, people might pick up a few words here and there, but it's not their home language. No one can claim that Ge'ez is their language, their personal language, other than the church. The church says, I own Ge'ez. Ge'ez is mine. Ge'ez is mine. Other than Ge'ez, other than the church, no one can claim Ge'ez is their personal language. For this reason, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has continued to use Ge'ez in the liturgical services. Therefore, whether you're Amarinya speaking community, whether you're Tigrinya speaking community, whether you're Orominya speaking community, it doesn't matter. You are, thank you. And the Muslims adopt the Arabic Quran. In fact, if you're a non-believer, you can pick up the Quran and read it to understand what the Quran is saying. But you are forbidden to read the Arabic one, because the Arabic is considered to be the actual authentic language of God or whatever. So the idea here is the Ge'ez language was chosen to be the language, the liturgical services of the church for many reasons. One of which is other people who speak other language will all be learning a new language. Admittedly, Amarinya and Tigrinya is closer to Ge'ez than Orominya, because of just the nature of language. But the idea here is we're all prescribing to a church language, not a Amhara language, not a Oromo language, not a Tigrinya language, but a church language. And some of the, cultural teachings or the church teachings say is the language of the angels. Now, you could take that for what it is. If you believe in it, you believe in it. If you don't, you don't. That's up to you. But the idea here is Ge'ez is a language of the church, not of an ethnic group. Interestingly, people say that Amarinya was favored or a certain group was favored. But in the I believe it was 50s, there was a discussion to say, let's change the liturgy into Amarinya. And the church said, no, we're not going to do that. Because Ge'ez is a language that we need to preserve, just like, for example, Greek or Latin. And I've done, wrote about this. English is a weak language. And there's languages that are strong or weak. Ge'ez is a strong language. And for that reason, we lose many of the mysteries when we translate it into a weak language like Amarinya. So the church said no to Amarinya. But over a period of time, they saw that people just couldn't keep up with Ge'ez, even though it was a liturgical language. So Amarinya, being the language that many people spoke at the time, people started translating things slowly, very painfully slowly, until, the past 20, 30 years, and other languages were like, well, okay, well, if Amarinya is doing that, why can't we? This is a very recent phenomenon for the church. The idea of translating something into another language is an extremely recent phenomenon. The Bible, the first Bible that I'm aware of that was translated from Ge'ez into Amarinya was done by a non-Ethiopian outside of the church. And in fact, there's teachings that the Ethiopian scholars, whenever they saw a Bible in Amharic, thought this was like blasphemy. How can we translate something from Ge'ez? Ge'ez is the language we stick. That is the language of the church. So there was no favoritism outside of Ge'ez. Ge'ez was the favorite. But outside of Ge'ez, and that is because, again, it was the language of the church, not because of an ethnic group, that it was favored. Later on, but once acceptance started happening, why can't we translate something? Let people know it. After all, this is what we wanted to do. More than anything else, actually, the Oromic language got very much acceptance. If we compare like the trajectory, like if it was a race, and how fast Amarinya took off in translation versus how many things have happened in a very short period of time that people have worked in Oromic has gotten a very much head start, or you could almost say. It's gotten a lot of attention, a lot of acceptance, and people recognize the need to do it. If we're asking, can more be done? The answer is absolutely. Absolutely. And more can be done. And now I come to my own service and your service in English. That is exactly what happened when we came here. There was a shortage of English-speaking community. So we went to the church and said, hey, there's a shortage of English services. And the church said, we don't have people to do that. You and I said, we're here. We can do that. The church said, go ahead. We are serving. The church is open. And even now, if the language is a problem, you can always say, hey, we could translate. The church will say, okay. And I'll end on this note. There's an interesting sermon or talk, if you will, that Diakon Heno gave about this current situation. And he said, it's interesting that, the question about the church is not doing enough for Oromo speaking community came because the current people that are have been ordained, all the 26 of them, they were one step shy of becoming a bishop in terms of their ranks, right? So there are many ranks that you have to go to get to a bishophood. And they were one rank shorter than becoming a bishop. And they would have been a bishop had they waited just a little bit longer. That means from the time that they were born, the church taught them, made them deacons, made them monks, made them priests, educated them to the point of knowledge of being a bishop. And right before that, they said, the church is not doing enough, so we're going to be a bishop. Well, they've raised them up. They're here. The reason why they're here is because of the church. So again, it's it's a catch-22. You can't say at one breath the church didn't do enough, and at the other breath say, look at all of us who are part of the church who are growing, who are learning, right? Obviously, can it do more? Yes, it can. Should it do more? Absolutely. But to take this approach suddenly and say we're going to divide the church in the way that it's happened is truly disappointing.
Yeah. It seems like they just use the language barrier as a veil to just go about their own different agenda. And unfortunately, they were used as tools to break apart the church, even though their upbringing is in the Orthodox Slaughter Church in the regions of Oromic. and they learned the church language. They learned everything about our faith, and that's what made them who they are. And one thing before I move on to the next question is something that I want to address. I know our sister Melat is here, and I believe she's a follower of Islam, you know, and she had I think she raised something, and then it turned into an ugly discussion. But I think her question was that her question came when you said it's well, it's forbidden for us to read the Quran in Arabic, right? And she said, I think she said everybody can read the Quran if they want to, just as anybody can go into the mosque and pray. I believe that was her question.
Well, my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that everybody can read the Quran, but when it comes to the Arabic Quran, the Arabic written in the Quran written in Arabic, that is often thought of a sacred text meant to be read by Muslims. That is my understanding. If I'm wrong, I do apologize, but that is my understanding of what I've been taught. So if she has a, you know, for bringing from to the tradition, I'll, you know, take her word for it if she says anyone could read even the Arabic one. So that's my understanding.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. That's when I think everything kind of turned left. So it's good. I think everybody followed along just exactly this language dilemma that we had. We know it hasn't been a problem, like Diakon Henok mentioned as well. We've been doing so many things for the church. You mentioned as well they are lacking in ordinance levels. They were supposed to be almost before they were ordained to be bishops. They did not reach that level, and we've seen a few of the ones that were I think one or two or something like that were married and then they were ordained, and one of them was barely a monk for like a few months before it was. So there was a lot of situation, and we can tell that this was a panic action on their part, and that is what is making it dangerous, because the bishop hierarchy is one that we look up to, because they are supposed to be a righteous being, and it's sad to see that our ordinances is not being followed the right way. So the very last question that I want us to address is also something that is coming from our respected brothers and sisters of the Orthodox law of faith, as well as a few people from the region up north, right? So one of the questions that was, that came about is that there was a lot of situations that happened in the past where our churches were attacked. Take Welega, for example. A few regions in Oromia down south have been attacked. We've seen priests being killed, and then we also seen most of the comments say, situation that happened in Axum and many different churches all around that area that have been attacked. So in this situations, like when we see all these things, why is this one different? They assume we're picking and choosing as to what to support and what not to support, and that comes from not understanding exactly why this is so significant, why we see this as a major problem, not just for the church that we have now, but the churches to come in the moving forward for the next generation. So how should we respond to this, and what is your
many times I get asked, especially recently, where were you when the Tigrayans were being massacred and killed? Where were you? My answer is simple. I was at the church. I was inside the church. Why is it different now? I'm still in the church, and people have come to attack me and divide my church. So and it's important to be honest here. And one of the things that I want to say is, and I see there are people from the Tigrayan region here posting a lot of things, and I hear you and I understand, and it's a real pain that people go through, and I sympathize and I empathize with everyone in there who has lost a loved one. It is truly sad, and in a certain way, I understand their pain. And I feel their pain because of everything that happened. But again, if we're going to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. Let's be honest. When first people were being killed all I could speak about myself, and I could speak about even the church, my church fathers who are around me. Everyone was crying and standing with the Tigrayan people. But the issue, and we have to be honest, is the question became, you have to stand not only with the Tigrayan people, but with TPLF as well. And this was the question that was posed to me personally in many platforms. And, we could say so many things about this. We stood with the Tigrayan people. I cried when the mothers were being raped. I believe the women, and I think that shouldn't happen to anyone, And that's the honest truth. And I feel bad for and I see someone saying, "Sir, stop the lie." You could go back and look at all my teachings and my sermons, and I challenge you to do so. How many times I've said, just stop what we're doing. Let's stop fighting. Let's unite. And there were many calls to urgently connect and be one. Unfortunately, the calls weren't heard because there was an additional request to support TPLF. And that's something that I can't do and I won't do for many reasons that I won't get into right now. With the people I stand with. Now, here's the point I want to make. Let's assume everything that our brothers from the Tigrayan region are saying is correct. Let's say I was one of the people who said, let the people die. Let's say that. Let's assume. I didn't say that. I would never say that. I don't want them to die. And let's say you hated me. Let's say I was an enemy. Because you're mad at me personally, because of my stupid beliefs and systems of what I'm saying as a deacon. Shame on me. Shame on me for thinking like that. If I did do that, are you justifying the killing of 5-year-old kids in Shashamene now? Is my comments that I supposedly said, or whoever, say the bishops, say the church, whoever was inside the church that you are accusing of saying all these things, it's not true. But let's say it's true. Are you justifying the killing of little children? Is that the argument and discussion we're having now? I ask all of us to take a step back and really consider, what are we saying? What statements are we making? We have forgotten what it means to be a human. As a human, we should sit back and say, wait a minute, did I say that? And there's room for pain. And when people are angry and they're in pain, they say very hurtful things. And yes, there have been many people who have said many hurtful things. But no one deserves the killing of innocent children. That's why we're here today. We're here advocate, not from, fine, you say I did something, fine, I'll take it. You could troll me. You could say whatever you want to me. Not the innocent children. Not the innocent mothers. Their lives matter just like your family, like your region, every region. I don't care if they're Tigray, Amara, Oromo, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. No one should die. And if we have digressed to the point where we're, where were you? So I'm not going to support the innocent children dying. I'm not going to advocate for them because you said this, or we have lost our minds. And that is what we have to think. This is real. And when it comes to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, it amazes me how there are people celebrating the division. There are people celebrating it. People are celebrating. If you're one of those people here, just, it's one thing to fight against, man. Reserve your words so you don't fight against God. Somebody said there's a Muslim person here. I'm a deacon of the Ethiopia. I would never say anything against the Quran. Never say anything about Islam. Out of respect. And I'm not part of the faith. I wouldn't say anything about Pastor Yonatan. He cursed out my church. That's my mother. I don't want anything anything to happen to him. I want him I want justice to be done, but I don't want him to get hurt. His family, his kid, nothing. Have we lost our minds? What are we saying? This church has been a light, not only for Ethiopians, but for the world. For the world. Read your history. If you look at Pan-Africanism, the Ethiopian church was at the center of hope for Africans and Black Americans across the world. It was the Ethiopian church. Read the writings of W.E.B. Du Bois, who was writing about the church, the first Black person, if I'm not mistaken, to get his PhD, and who has been a pioneer for the freedom acts of Black Americans and for Africans throughout. He wrote about the Ethiopian church, saying how beautiful it was and how it was a beacon of hope. Marcus Garvey initiated everyone to go back to Ethiopia. The Ethiopian church has been the hope for the freedom of Africans and Black Americans across the world. You know what's amazing? Is there people like Booker T. Washington, Black Americans, who in the 1940s urged the Black people to remember they're below white folks and get the lower jobs, because they must enter into society in stages. And there were people like W.B. Du Bois who said, what are you saying? He said, no. Remember, we're below white people. We have to, we have to systematically work and get the lower jobs. And it's okay if we get paid lower. And this person is now celebrated. If you go to the African American Museum, his name is up there right next to Booker T. Washington. Why? Because Black African Americans understand, even though he said the wrong thing, he's one of us. And at the end of the day, he was trying to do something good. Even though what he said, hindsight is 2020, and he said something unimaginable. So at that time, they understood that was the best that he could do, and he's one of us. So in the African American Museum, you'll see W.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington and Marcus Garvey right next to each other. Today, all of us are trying to do the best to help our country. If we really are worried about each other and the better of one another, if we say there was a mistake back then, we say we are sorry, and then we work together for peace. When we all have peace, there's peace in the region, in the country, in the world. But this attitude of back then, y'all did this, so we hope you burn. Someone said, you let the Orthodox Church burn in hell. That's what they tweeted. They let the church burn in hell. When you make comments like this, there's repercussions. People follow that literally, and they are burning the church down. And when you're saying that, you are supporting the cause of the people that are killing the innocent people. We in the West, we drive the conversation that's happening in Ethiopia. We set the tone for the culture. People look at Facebook, they look at IG Live, they look at all this stuff, and they follow that tradition. If you are truly concerned about the people dying in Tigray, then pray for them. I'll pray for them as well. We could unite in prayer. If we're honest about this, then we can work together. But the problem is people have different ideologies behind it, different political ideologies. If it's not TPLF, no one else should rule Ethiopia. If it's not the Oromo people, no one else should rule Ethiopia. If it's not from my region of whatever, if it's not from Amara region, no one should rule it. This ideology is killing us, and we are seeing our blood being shed throughout the world. This is the honest truth. And here in America, we've grown up here, and we still have these ideologies. Again, read. Africa, Pan-Africanism movement started in America. It started in America. And Kwame and all of these people who freed Ghana and the reason why colonialism never happened in Africa, it started in America because Black Americans came together and said, what can we do for Africans? Let's set the tone. And they set the tone and they freed Africa. 1959, 1960 was declared the year of Africa. Why? Because those black people came to Africa and they set the tone. We could do the same thing today. We could do the same thing today. Set the tone. What kind of conversation are we going to? Let's show what peace looks like, what unity looks like. But it is difficult to talk about unity when people are like, unless it's my way, unless it's my ethnic group, I'm not going to give in. And when you open your mouth and you're saying, let the church burn in hell, what kind of response are you expecting? What kind of unity are you looking to get? This is the honest truth. Let's talk if we're going to talk.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. I think that was, you couldn't have answered that any better. When it comes to this situation, the circumstance, the misunderstanding, I think we need to be very, very cautious the way we speak to one another. And I see in the comment section there's a huge, fight, man, for it. And it starts right here. The reason why we kept the comments on is not so that we watch people fight. Or this is not a platform for people, to just bring up random agendas and just have an argument, because it will be really pointless if you are trying to make a point in the comment section. That's not what's going to help right now. What's important right now is addressing the main issues. And one of them was that, like, where was everybody during that time? And why is this, so important right now? And like he mentioned, this whole situation, when it started, I remember Matthias speaking about it, the Holy Synod proclaiming Mihilla for every church. And I remember my church, the church that I started, most churches that I know, almost all churches did Mihilla. Pretty much every time that there was liturgy, every time there was any type of event for the peace of Ethiopia, so that innocent people stop dying. And that's the whole case of it. And there is nothing different right now. The only thing that the church did was that they proclaimed prayer and fasting, and the only situation that I saw is just that now we are attired in black to show our mourning for the church. We're not here, like I said, like a political party. We are saying this so that the church doesn't break off. Where the reason why we're so adamant in fighting this is because the moment the government allows the church to break off and make them their own church organization or church synod, that is the day that we no longer recognize them as the Orthodox sort of Christian. None of the Oriental Orthodox Church will recognize them as Orthodox sort of Christians, in terms them becoming pretty much like Gentiles to us. And that's not what we want to see. That's not what we want to see happen for those people, for millions of people that follow the Orthodox faith in the Oromic region. This is why we are fighting. This is why we think and believe that this is very, very important to address. Thank you, Diakon David, for enlightening us with so many things about the situation, the current events, as well as the lingua issue, as well as church attacks that have happened in the past. Thank you for addressing that as well, because it was not just in the northern aspect of the churches where our faith was attacked, but also in the region of Oromia, we saw them pretty much recording what was happening, right? As they were slaughtering, as they were beheading the priests, they recorded it, the Islamic State. In the region of Jimma, if you guys remember, they did the same thing. They threw the priests, the deacons, and the people that came for Kida inside the church, locked the church, set it on fire, and then sang songs and laughed on camera as they were as they hear and as we hear the screams of the priests and then deacons. And we saw that happen everywhere as well. When orthodoxy is attacked, we should all feel like we are attacked. Right now, this is what we are fighting. This is the true faith. Let us fight for it. This is all we are asking us to do. Anything else?
Yeah, one of the things that I want to say is people that are who consider themselves Ethiopian Orthodox on the church. I want to echo Abuna Petros's message to all of us. Fasting is not just about food. He said to fast from our mouths as well. So there are some people really I really think they're engaging in conversations and good. And those of you who have further questions, you can hit me up and I'll engage. But there are some who are here, obviously, to incite, and they're saying things on all sides, And if you are a part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, fast your mouth, meaning don't say things in retaliation. We are Christians. We must behave like Christians. We are stern about what we believe in, and we will declare what we believe in very strongly, but we don't attack the person directly and say all these negative things that I've been reading. We've got to learn how to have a conversation. We've got to learn how to have a conversation. At the end of the day, if we keep fighting, we're all going to die. And I've said it before, no one is winning. I don't think there's a single ethnic group, a single political party, a single faith that is saying, this is a great time for me. This is a perfect time for me. No. The more we fight, the more all of us are going to keep going down. If we want to succeed, we've got to say, look, we need to talk. There may be many things that we disagree on. There may be different things that we have. But we here, especially in America, we have so many things that we could do if we work together. We could show the rest of the world, no, we refuse. We are one. We refuse. We'll work together. We'll stand up for the people of Tigray. We'll stand up for the people of Oromo. We'll stand up for the people of Amara, the people of Afar. We'll stand up for the Orthodox people, the Muslims, the Protestants, for all of those who are under attack. We'll stand for them. We could do that. And we could change the narrative. But this, whatever this is happening, that's not going to get us anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Like you mentioned, if you have any more questions, we'll be more than happy to engage. I'll pass down any question that you have to David. You can follow him. His handle is on top as well. And then we will conclude today's program. Hopefully we come back tomorrow and do the very same thing. If there is more questions that come up, I'll post a question story so that if you have any more question or something that we didn't address today, we'll address tomorrow, no problem. Hopefully David is willing to join us again. And then let's have our sister Rebecca join us for the last hymn.